Yeah, get the out of the country. This is Jewish country only. We don't need Muslims here.
Assalamu alaikum, brother Minister Ahmed El-Shabazz.
Walaikum salam, brother Mustapha Amin. How are you this morning?
I'm fine. All praises due to Allah. Today you have a very timely topic for us.
Today we are discussing Zionism. What is Zionism? And the reason why we are bringing this up is because of what's in today's headlines. It is a topic that many of the younger people today need to really understand what's going on with Zionism. The crooked politicians today are conflating Zionism with being, and if you're against Zionism, they're trying to conflate that to say that you're being anti-Semitic. But Zionism and Judaism are two different things. And we want to discuss and bring up some history to prove that Christian Zionism is actually older than so-called Jewish Zionism. So we have in the Bible, there's a quote from Malachi: they build up Zion with blood and Jerusalem with iniquity. There's another verse in the Bible. This is in Malachi 3:10, and there's another verse in the Bible that fits today's headlines. This witness is true, wherefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in faith, not giving heed to Jewish fables and commandments of men that turn from the truth. And that is Titus 1:13 and 14. The Holy Quran tells the Muslims about these people, quote, and when there came to them a messenger from Allah, verifying that which they have, a party of those who were given the book, that is the Torah, through the book of Allah behind their backs, as if they knew nothing. Holy Quran 2:101. The Holy Quran also warns us, the Muslims, about these people. O you who believe, take not the Jews and the Christians for friends. They are friends of each other. And whoever amongst you take them for friends, he is indeed one of them. Surely Allah guides not the unjust people. Holy Quran 5:51. Now we have a quote from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from The Fall of America. Quote, America and England deposited their little brother Israel on foreign soil. Palestine, which is Arab land. They deprived the Arabs of their own land and sent them into exile. This injustice against the Arabs is now costing America the power and authority that she once exercised in the East. She's on her way out of the Near East. This means bloodshed and plenty of it. In the Near East, there stand navies which are neither American nor British. They are there to drive America out, end quote. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the last messenger of Allah, from page 171 and 172 of The Fall of America. And that was written in 1973. That quote there is reading like today's headlines. We see Russia has ships in the Mediterranean now. China has put ships in the Mediterranean. Turkey is sitting there, though Turkey is still supplying Israel with oil. We must look at that. Look at that quote from 1973. And I'm old enough and young enough to remember that was not happening in 1973. That was a prophecy. That was a prediction that during the fall of America, we would see these things. And now we're seeing them today in today's headlines. Now, I have a quote here from Joe Biden, who is the United States president, the current president of the United States. And I want you to listen to this quote very carefully. because we're going to analyze this very telling quote. Quote, I don't believe you have to be a Jew to be a Zionist, and I'm a Zionist, end quote. That's United States President Joe Biden. He made that quote on October the 21st, 2023. You must remember that President Joe Biden is America's second Catholic president. He's a Catholic. He's not Jewish. So, and he said you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. Also, so it stands to reason that if you're anti-Zionist policies, that does not mean that you're anti-Semitic, right? But again, these politicians here in the United States and in Britain, and I'm pretty sure in other parts of Europe and elsewhere, are trying to conflate that if you're against the policies of Zionism, especially in today's political climate, that somehow you're being anti-Semitic. And I submit to you, the listeners, that some of the main proponents, main people who holler anti-Semitism or are the very anti-Semites themselves. If you accuse Zionism, critique it and bring it out, showing that it's racist, that Israel, the country of Israel, the state of Israel, which I call it the 51st state of the United States, is an apartheid regime, that it is a European settler colonial scheme, then I will be labeled an anti-Semite. But I'm not anti-Semitic because that means I'll be anti-Arab or anti-Black too, wouldn't it? So we see they're conflating and they've taken advantage of the fact that many people don't know the history of Zionism. Now we see the Arabs, many Arabs, look at the Arab countries today. They're not protecting the Palestinians. More people have died in Gaza. Over 30,000 people have been slaughtered. Egypt has stand by, done nothing. All these Jordan actually the other day helped protect Israel from a strike from the Islamic Republic of Iran, though Jordan has a large Palestinian population. The so-called Saudi Arabia is doing nothing to protect the Palestinians. This was the prophecy that Prophet Muhammad predicted that the Arabs would be doing in this day and time, that they would be large in number, but the enemy of Islam will have their foot or on their neck. They have the weapons, but they want this antichrist money. As we see, I'm going to bring this one point in. Saudi Arabia is now going to open up its first bar. They're going to start selling liquor in Arabia, in Riyadh, to advance tourism. So they're in league with the Zionists. They're one of them. They've taken the Christians and the Jews for friends. Firstly, we must understand that so-called Christian Zionism is actually older than Jewish Zionism, as I stated. History has showed us that, quote, advocacy for the restoration of Palestine as a national homeland for the Jews was first heard among self-identified Christian groups in the 1580s, following the Protestant Reformation, end quote. And secondly, we must delve into something, Mustapha, that anti-Zionism does not equate anti-Semitism. Due to facts, the real anti-Semites are the Zionist Jews, who are not Semitic at all. 90% of the people who call themselves Jews today are not Semitic, are not Semites, so-called. They have no connection to the Near East. They're the Khazars, or in the Bible, they're called the Ashkenazi. In Genesis, look at that word Ashkenazi. Don't you have Nazi at the end of that word? Nazi, spelled N-A-S-I. I have to say these things when they pop in my head because this is historical fact. But the term Nazi was the title of the prince of the Jewish Sanhedrin. It was spelled N-A-S-I. Now, we know Hitler and Nazi was an acronym, the National Socialism, but look how clever they were. Because some of us know that Hitler himself was a Jew, but he was anti-Jewish, a Jew who was anti-Jewish. Okay, so there's a lot of hypocrisy going on here. Due to facts, the real anti-Semites, again, are the Zionist Jews who are not Semitic at all, but are the Khazars, and they converted to Judaism in the 9th century. You have to Khazaria. You have to look at that. 90% of the Jews today are Khazars with no blood ties to the Near East. I would like to quote from a book that was written in 1961. It's called One White Race. It's on page 186. I would like to quote. And the premise of this book, One White Race, is there's only one white people, whether they call themselves Jews, Christians, whatever. There's only one white people, and the Khazars have the world thinking that they're totally something outside the white race, which they're not. So I'm going to read here, page 186. Now, quote: "The Jewish Encyclopedia says, quote, the Khazars, a people of Turkish origin whose life and history are interwoven with the very beginning of the history of Jews in Russia. The kingdom of the Khazars were firmly established in most of South Russia, along with the foundation of the Russian monarchy. Jews have lived on the shores of the Black and Caspian Seas since the first centuries of the Common Era. And historically, evidence points to the region of the Urals as the home of the Khazars." End quote. The home of the Khazars are the Urals, right? Is that in the Middle East? No, that's not, is it? See, the Khazars were a warlike tribe in the Caucasus Mountains. They were raiders, they were barbarians, and they accepted Judaism because they did not want to be a part of the Byzantine Empire, and they did not want to be a part of the Islamic Empire that was in Baghdad. So they took the middle course. They chose Judaism because it was in line with their nature. They were into black magic, and we're going to get into that too. They were mostly magicians. They were also known as the name stealers. They were appropriating other people's identities. There's another book that people need to read also. This book was written in 1976. It's by Arthur Koestler, and the name of the book is called The 13th Tribe. And his premise is that the story of the Khazars is he goes into the history of the Khazars, their acceptance of Judaism, and that they are not or have never been connected to the Near East. They are the people of Gomer. You can go in the Bible and it's about the Ashkenazi, you know. That's for historians. Now, some of the main advocates for Zionism are, in fact, Protestant Christians. We see that today with the evangelical church here in the United States, especially. So that shows you that in modern times, especially the past 30, 40 years, the average Christian has had a Zionist education, whether they know it or not. So I'm old enough to remember that Christians would have never said the Jews were the chosen people. This is a recent phenomenon. You know, this is like 30 or 40 years that I've been hearing Christians say that the Jews are the chosen people. That's Zionism. The person responsible in modern times for turning Christians, quote unquote, into Zionist Christians was most notably a con man by the name of Cyrus Ingerson Schofield. And he wrote his own version of the King James Bible, known as the Schofield Reference Bible, and it was published in 1909. The Schofield Reference Bible has made Zionists out of millions of Americans, black and white. He went line by line in the King James. He wrote his own Bible, and he put forth dispensationalism. And at the beginning of the 20th century, dispensationalism is a theological work of interpreting the Bible, which maintains that history is divided into multiple stages or dispensations, in which God acts with His chosen people in different ways. End quote. That's the definition of dispensationalism. Dispensationalists use the literal interpretation of the Bible, and they believe that the divine revelation unfolds throughout the Bible. They further believe that there is a distinction between Israel and the church, and that Christians are not bound by Mosaic law. End quote. Now, that's something, isn't it? They maintain beliefs in premillennialism, Christian Zionism, and the rapture of the church that will happen before the second coming of Christ. This is generally seen as the period of the Great Tribulation for them. Dispensationalism also was systemized and promoted by another person called John Nelson Darby. He was a forerunner of Schofield. and the Plymouth Brethren, and this took place in the 19th century. They put forth this belief system and it began to spread in the United States during the 19th century through evangelists such as James Ingalls, James Hall Brooks, and Dwight L. Moody, and the efforts of the Niagara Bible Conference. And they also established these Bible institutes. For example, many Protestant preachers received their education through the Moody Bible Institute. So this Zionism, this Christian Zionism has been filtering in American Christianity for over 100 years, slowly coming in. Now, during the beginning of the 20th century, Schofield introduced, again, the Schofield Reference Bible, and that solidified dispensationalism in the United States. Many so-called Christians in America and the Western world in general are, in fact, Zionists, as they have been programmed to be so. They've been programmed to be Zionists. They don't even know it. And especially the white Christian nationalists that are rising up here in the United States and followers of Donald Trump and these other Christian Zionist leaders like John Hagee and others. They've been programmed to be Zionists and anti-Islamic. This is just another form of white supremacy. History, we've gone through the Pax Britannica. We've gone through Pax Americana. Now, this is their end game. They want to do Pax Judaica, and they want to rule the world. The Zionists want to rule the world from Jerusalem. This is their end game. These Christian Zionists believe that Jesus will come back 2 times. Now, the average Christian doesn't believe that, do they? But these Christian Zionists believe that Jesus, quote unquote, will come back 2 times. First, he will return to remove Christians, taking them to heaven, quote unquote, the spooky heaven. And then the Antichrist will rule for a time. Then Jesus will return a second time to save the Jews. Now, the Schofield Bible, which was published by Oxford University Press, and it contains the entire traditional Protestant King James version of the Bible, but it has its own, he tweaked it, so to speak. And this was first appeared in 1909. It was revised by Schofield in 1917. I want the listeners to pay attention to these dates. 1909. We know we have a group of people that called the Boule. They came into existence in the early 1900s. We also have the Sultan of Turkey was overthrown in 1908 by Jewish Zionists, the Young Turk Party. So we have to keep these things in perspective. Look at the time frame. And these groups are all connected. The Boule, NAACP, the Freemason, the Christian Zionists, they're all, you may not think, and even the Jesuits, where they are the spearhead of all this. All of this is connected. So this Bible first appeared in 1909. He updated it in 1917. Now, the question is, who funded the Schofield Bible? This guy Schofield didn't have any money. He was a con man. He was constantly ripping people off. He has no theological background whatsoever. He had no theological background whatsoever. So who funded this guy? All right. The answer, it was the Zionist Masonic Jews who funded the Schofield Bible. It was Zionists such as Samuel Gompers, LaGuardia, Zionists by the name of Abraham Strauss, and Bernard Baruch, and David Schiff. These are the people who financed Schofield's research trip to Oxford, England, and arranged the publication of his Bible with all this dubious footnotes and heretical implications. This is a little side note. Schofield was also a member of the Lotus Club in New York. People may want to look into that for their own benefit. What was the Lotus Club? Who was a member of the Lotus Club? That's another society, secret society. Surprisingly, Oxford Press gave away 1 million copies of the Schofield Bible to American churches. 1 million copies was given away. Then the Christian theological schools began to teach Schofieldism, which was basically Zionism, to American Christians. So as we go deeper, do a deeper dive into Schofield's history, we find Schofield first moves in the production of his Bible was to go to England for research. And once he was there, he sought out two very controversial scholars, one named Westcott and Hoyt in London. They were known as Bible scholars, but really they were not. The truth is that both of these men were into occult rituals, both of them. Westcott had formed a secret club called Hermes, and it was noted for aggressive homosexual activities between its members. We also find that in 1851, Hoyt and Westcott also started the Ghost Society, which was first billed as a study of spiritual events, and it turned into a seance group. So they was into spiritual
Mm-hmm.
necromancy and black arts. The members of that group, one of its members was the famous author Balfour, who in 1917, look at the date.
Yeah.
Schofield updated his Bible in 1917. And then in 1917, we have author Balfour, who is famous for the Balfour Agreement that bequeathed Palestine as a, quote, national home for Jewish people, end quote. And see, we will later discuss author Balfour's connection to Masonic Zionism. So we have Judeo-Christianism, right? Judeo-Christianism. That is a new term, brother. That's one of them terms that was just dropped in on society. So we have the term Judeo-Christian to group Christianity and Judaism together. So the term Judeo-Christian first appeared in the 19th century as a word for Jewish converts to Christianity. The term has received much criticism from Jewish thinkers, people who are religious Jews. They don't particularly care to be called Judeo-Christian. Okay. Now we have Jewish Zionism and the Freemason in Palestine. Freemasonry itself is Jewish. Freemasonry is basically Jewish mysticism for Gentiles. There again, no black person, especially a Muslim, no black Muslim or no black people, period, should be a part of Freemasonry. It is not really necessary after the coming of Master Farad Muhammad and the
Mm-hmm.
rise of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. There's no need for a black man to be a member of the Freemasons because you're not getting the whole truth there. Getting part of the truth. And we don't want part of nothing. We want the whole thing. The Holy Quran condemns Freemasonry. The Bible even condemns Freemasonry, if you understand it. Freemasonry was given to basically civilize the white race, and they took it and went left with it. Okay, so we don't want the left hand path, and we're not riding the goat because the goat will be placed on the left side of the Son of Man, and the sheep are going to be placed on his right side. Now, I want to be on the right side of history, not the left. I'm using some symbolic talks for them folks out there. There was a ruling in Arabia. There was an Islamic conference in 1978, and it was a official ruling by the Muslim world that stated if you are a Muslim, you are be classified as an infidel if you join the Masonic order, which is Zionist in nature and Jewish in nature. If you are a Muslim and you join the Masonic order, knowing the history of the Masonic order, you'll be classified as an infidel. And we have a Muslim so-called leader in the United States who has publicly come out as a Freemason. So he has publicly come out as an infidel. We'll get into
Mm-hmm.
who he is. Everybody know who he is. So Jewish Zionism and this connection to Freemasonry and Palestine. So we have the first Jewish conference, first Zionist conference, which was held in 1897. It was a major event, and it was an event to get the ball rolling for the establishment of the state of Israel. Now, this father of Jewish political Zionism was Theodor Herzl. And he was born in 1860. He died in 1904. Pay attention to these dates. Although Zionism was not his invention, Herzl was a driving force in the Zionist movement. And in 1896, he published a book called The Jewish State, an attempt at a modern solution for the Jewish question. Now, we must realize Theodor Herzl was not a religious Jew. He was an atheist. He was not a religious man. He was a Freemason also. So the first conference was held 1897 on August the 29th, and it was convened in Switzerland. There were 197 delegates from 16 countries who formed the initial group. Side note, also, the first choice for the Zionist Jews was not Palestine for their state. That was not their first choice. The state of Israel was not to be placed in Palestine at first. Guess where they were going to put the state of Israel first? This country called Uganda. So Palestine was not their first choice. Uganda in Africa was their first choice. It's very telling. Okay, meanwhile, behind the scenes, prior to the first Zionist conference, which was held in 1897, some 11 years earlier, the Four Crowns Lodge in England was founded. The Four Crowns Lodge. And the QC Lodge was founded as a special research lodge by the Grand Master, which was the Prince of Wales, later King Edward VII. And that was formed in 1884. Pay attention to these dates. The Crown Lodge was officially chartered in 1886, and the inaugurating speech was entitled, quote, Freemasonry as seen in the light of the Kabbalah. We know that the Kabbalah is a branch of Jewish mysticism, do we not? The lodge was to focus on Palestine, the Kabbalah, and the establishment of a Jewish homeland and the rebuilding of Solomon's temple. I'm going to stop right there for a second. There's been a movement here recently that they're supposed to do a Jewish ritual involving a red heifer, a cow. They're supposed to sacrifice this cow. Once again, we were warned about these Jewish fables, right? They have bred red cows here in Texas, and they shipped them over to Palestine for these Zionist Jews to do their ritual. It has nothing to do with biblical or Islamic teachings. This is all Masonic. So this lodge that was established in England and Great Britain was to focus on Palestine, the Kabbalah, and establishment of a Jewish homeland, the rebuilding of Solomon's temple. Sir Charles Warren was the first Grand Master of the QC Lodge. He was also the presiding president over the Palestine Exploration Fund. 2 decades earlier, he has been the chief engineer for the British excavations of Temple Mount. So we also find that this man, Warren, was the brother-in-law of Annie Besant, and she later became the president of the Theosophical Society of Helena Blavatsky. These are all Satanists. So they put forth the Balfour Agreement. Some 30-some years later, they come out with the Balfour Agreement, right? 31 years later, the Balfour Agreement was issued by the British government in 1917. That was the same year that Schofield updated his Schofield Bible, wasn't it? And this was during the First World War, and it announced the support for the establishment of a national home for Jewish people, backed by the Rothschild family. And we know about the Jewish Rothschild family. They're the primary movers and shakers in Israel, even at this point in history. As we see the Zionists depose the Sultan of Turkey, 1908. Then we had World War I. The Turkish Empire fell due to the actions of the British and the Wahhabi Arabs who betrayed Islam and worked with the British to overthrow the Ottoman Empire there in Arabia. And the Arabs ransacked Medina and took control of Arabia, and then had the nerve to name the whole peninsula of Arabia after one family, the House of Saud. There's a book I recommend for people. It's called The Enemy Unmasked, and it's about the Jesuits. Albert Pike was a Jesuit trained person. He was a 33rd degree Mason and above. He was also the co-founder of the Ku Klux Klan. So this co-founder of the Ku Klux Klan, Jesuit-backed, Jesuit-trained, Satanist, Luciferian, he's the one that planned 3 world wars in 1871. The First World War was to destroy the czars of Russia, the Tsar of Russia, and to bring in communism. That was the plan, first plan of World War One. That happened. World War Two will be fomented between the Germans and political Zionists. There would be a Nazi versus the Zionists. Okay, that happened. It was defeat of Nazism and the rise of political Zionism. That happened because in 1948 the state of Israel was formulated right after World War II. And in fact, if we dig deep enough, you'll see that Hitler was sending uh, Jews from Germany to Palestine for colonies to get them out of Germany. All right. Now, World War III, which we're in now, many people don't know World War III started a while ago. World War III was planned to cause a fight between Zionists and the Arabs. We see that going on today. The ultimate plan is the destruction of political Zionism and political Islam and introduce a pure Luciferian doctrine to be brought out in public view. Are we not seeing that? World War III is to destroy what's left of traditional Christianity, traditional political Islam, which the Wahhabism, and Zionism, and they want a pure Luciferian doctrine. Many people don't realize that the building of the third temple of Solomon, the Roman Catholic Church is behind that as well. There is something called Catholic Judaism. Many people may not know that. And there's a book that people may want to read called Bloody Zion. It's very telling. So as we see the Muslims and the Zionist Jews fight, the Catholic Church is sitting back laughing because they're part of this too. We have some information here that says back in 1993, remember there was Mr. Perez. He put forth a two-state solution, and he was knighted. Now you say, well, he's Jewish. Why is he receiving a knighthood? The Jerusalem Post reported that under the Israeli Labor Party leader Perez plan, the old walled city would be a world capital with the UN Secretary General serving as his mayor. And the Jerusalem Post went on to state that Perez's plan was the sovereignty of the holy places would revert to their owners. And since the Vatican had the lion's share of real estate claims, guess who will own most of the Holy Land, so-called Holy Land in Jerusalem? That'll be the Vatican, wouldn't it? Now, these Zionists in their writings have said that the Pope will be the king of the Jews. So I want people to pay attention to what the garments that the Pope wears. The Pope wears a yarmulke on his head too, doesn't he? The Pope wears a crown that looks like a fish mouth open, right? If you look at the old ancient Babylonian religion, you see the same thing. So this is nothing but the old Babylonian mystery system in modern times. The Catholic Church is nothing but Jewish Greco-Roman Freemasonry. So we shouldn't be surprised at the connection between the Jesuits, because this Pope is the first Jesuit Pope. The Catholic Church had disbanded the Jesuits for a while, and now they're back in power. So we shouldn't be surprised to see the Jesuits, the Zionist Jews, the evangelical Christians, and some of these Arab groups who are into mysticism united to foment this war that we see today. We must look back over history and be well versed in history to see what's happening right now. This did not just pop up out of nowhere. Muslims need to know Muslim history, period. Instead of, we need to know the whole of Islamic history and understand what's going on today. The Bible, these Jews are building a temple for their Messiah. Their Messiah is the Antichrist. The Bible says that the Messiah was going to build his own temple, right? The Messiah has already built his own temple. The Messiah is the great Mahdi. He's already come and built his temple up. So these Jews are building a temple for their Messiah, and their Messiah is the Antichrist. This is what the world is facing. And so this man here ruling Palestine today, Netanyahu, who is an American who was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 76 years old, is a part of a very satanic Jewish cult. He was told 30 years ago to hurry up and cause events to bring about the Messiah. So this is what you see him doing. He's hell bent on bringing about World War III. Basically, this is going to spread to other regions in the Near East. This is all planned. This is all Luciferianism. But as the Holy Quran says, they plan, but Allah is the best planner. As we see, fall of America and World War III, we were all warned about this day and time. And so we have today, Louis Farrakhan and these black Zionists attacking Islam. They're attacking the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he made it quite clear that black people are not Israel. Israel is a white race, so-called white race. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, not Israel, my friends. It almost makes me sick to see you so far off the truth. Not Israel, but you, so-called Negroes, the Bible is referring to is the lost sheep in the house of Israel. See, the black man is not Israel. We are the lost sheep in the house of Israel, he says. Going to quote further, in a nation of Caucasian people. I mean, not in the nation, not in the race of that people as a member by blood and flesh of theirs, but a lost member of another people that has been captured and now being held as prey in the house of Israel, in the nation or race of the white race. You have been captured. They have brought you from your people 400 years ago for a price. This is why it's necessary for you to have a savior to come to and redeem you, because you were sold for a price. But the truth will redeem you, as it is written. The truth alone will free you now. But you are hindered, and you worship those who hinder you from the knowledge of the truth. The last messenger of Allah, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And this is what I see my people going through right now. They're being hindered because they're worshiping the very people who are hindering them from the truth. They worship Farrakhan. We're not the children of Israel, Farrakhan. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said we were not the children of Israel, but the children in the house of Israel. America's Israel. IUIC, the same thing. Those people are worshiping that bishop, and he's leading them from the path of Allah, hindering them from the knowledge of the truth. Again, concerning the word Israel, Israel means fighter of God, one who wrestles with God. You must remember, this is what the father or the maker of the so-called white race did. Yaqub or Jacob fought Allah. He wrestled with Allah's righteous government and was sent into exile on the island of Patmos. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad also taught, quote, in order for King James to conceal the truth of the true identity of the most talked about people of his book, he wisely used the terms Israel and Hebrew. In the Jewish language, Israel means chosen tribe. In the Hebrew language, it means gifted tribe of God's elect. In the book of Genesis 15, 13 through 15, it explains to Abram what will happen to his seed, his tribe. Also in the book of Malachi 3, 8, and 9. So by reading the Bible very carefully, you will notice that it speaks of one particular people from beginning to end. That one particular people are not the Jews, Hebrews, or Israelites. the so-called white race. The one particular people called God's elect are the God tribe Shabazz, who are Muslims created by Allah.